So as I mentioned a few days ago, I picked up this lawnmower, Craftsman lawnmower, for free. You can see I got the hood off. Now the guy said that when he tried to start it, it would just go click, 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 which indicates a few things, but someplace we can start is the solenoid. Now the solenoid, if solenoid goes bad, you can't use the key. Now you can bypass the solenoid. It's not very hard to do. So I'm going to jump the lawnmower with another lawnmower because there's no battery in it. Now the goal today is not to fix the lawnmower. The goal is to kind of isolate what may be wrong with it and take it step by step before we go and buy a lot of parts for it. For example, I know the solenoid is bad and I know there's no battery, but I'm not going to buy either one of those until I know that the valves are okay and there's compression and just all kinds of different things. And then as I see, okay, this is going to work, then I can go and buy a solenoid or a battery. The battery may be the last thing I buy. I don't really need it to start the lawnmower. Another thing that I know for sure is bad is the tires. And I'm probably going to get inner tubes for them, but there's no reason to spend the money on it if it's not going to work. So we're just going to take it one piece at a time. So I'm going to hook up the jumper cables to the jumping mower. Okay, I already heard clicking, so the key was on. See if we can hear it again. Okay, so that tells me the carburetor is working, or at least the shut off to the carburetor. This component down here with the wires on it has a stopping valve in it. And so when you shut the lawnmower off, it shuts the carburetor, the gas going to the carburetor, so it doesn't backfire. So we know that's working. So we're going to try to start it with the key, and there's nothing. So that could mean that their starter or the solenoid is bad. Well, the first thing you want to do is check to see if the solenoid's bad. The solenoid makes an electric current from the battery to the starter using the key. So the key engages the solenoid, which shuts the solenoid and causes the electric current go to the starter. Well, if it's not working, then you got to bypass it. And it's going to be hard to see. But what we can see here is, let's see, you got your positive cable coming from the battery and your positive cable coming from the starter. Hoping you can see that. So what we're going to do is take an old screwdriver. In my case, we're going to take an old socket ratchet, I should say, and we're going to stick it on the two positives. That bypasses the solenoid. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this action take place. Okay. So we are getting some rotation, and I'll show you, from the okay, so that tells me something. The lifters on the valves, if they're not adjusted properly, which you should adjust those once a year anyways, just for good maintenance, it will be hard to turn over like that on a Briggs & Stratton engine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the spark plug out real quick and see if it'll turn all the way around. If it does, then we know that's the issue. And the reason we're going to know that's the issue is because the spark plug will allow the piston to move without any pressure behind it. All right, now we're going to turn the engine over again to see if it spins freely. So it spins. So again, that tells me that the valves need fixing, or adjusting, I should say. So we'll go ahead and adjust those valves. Now the thing we want to do while we're down here, I'll get a flashlight and we're going to, you won't be able to see it in the camera, but I'm going to move the piston up and down. I'm going to look through the spark plug hole to see if I can see it moving, which I'm sure it is. There's compression in it. Okay, so here we're at the overhead valve cover, and the first thing we see is it's got a lot of oil on it. I would be concerned that it may be leaking. I don't know. There's some oil on this machine, but not an extensive amount, but it may be leaking. So that means I'll probably have to replace the gasket on this as well. That being said, I'm not going to do it right away. I've got some Permatex sealing stuff coming. UPS is taken almost 2 weeks to get that done. The other thing that I would like to check, but I'm going to need somebody else to watch it, is the spark plug to see if it's got any spark. And since I have to manipulate the starting solenoid, then I'll need somebody to watch the spark plug. Yeah, I would say the gasket looks okay. And there's some wear around the edges. But what I noticed was there was oil on the opposite side of it. So it's the valve cover may have warped. It may have gotten hot and warped. That happens over time. So what I'll do is I'll put some of that sealant on there. If I can get this off without tearing it up. Yeah, if I can get it off without tearing it up, I'll put some sealant around, put it back on. Otherwise, I'll have to get another gasket. And I'll still put sealant on it. Okay, so this is the lifters to the valves. And what we want to do is they say that you need to find top dead center, but you don't really need to do that. What you need to do is you need to turn the engine until they are loose. One's in, one's out. So that one is in, this one is out. And so what we want to do is we want to see if they're in tolerance. Now, the way we're going to do that is we're going to put a feeler gauge in between the valve and the lifter here, and then we'll do the other one. So the tolerance is supposed to be 4,000. So I've got my feeler gauge here, and I'm certain that this is going to slide right in there. No problem, goes right in there. So what we want to test for is see how big it is, because obviously we're going to need to adjust that, it looks like. So just to give you, on camera, I'm going to just tell you what the actual measurement is. Otherwise, I would have just adjusted it without going through all that exercise. So there's 10 thousandths. 10 thousandths is probably just too big. I would even say you probably could get 11 thousandths in there. Okay, so what we have to do now is we have to take a wrench, and it's a 10 millimeter, And then we're going to take a torque screwdriver, and we're going to, what you have to do is you have to loosen the torque screw in the center here, but you want to hold the bolt with the 10 millimeter. You don't want it to move. So we're going to loosen that. And then we're going to get our 4 thousandths feeler gauge and put it back in here. And then we're going to tighten the lifter, but you got to make sure that your torque screw is loose enough. So now my feeler gauge is way too tight. I can't get it out. So we'll loosen it up, and that's great right there. So now you hold the wrench, you don't move it, and then you tighten that torque screw back up. Then we'll check it again, just to be sure. And then we'll do the other one. So we'll turn it until this one comes out and this one's all the way in. We'll get our 4 thousandths feeler gauge, and again, it's pretty loose. Okay, right there. So again, we'll hold our wrench and we'll tighten the torque screw. On the top of the valve cover cap, the model number of the engine, I need to clean this up so you can see it better. This is where you'll get all your information so you can order parts for this particular engine. Okay, with any luck, this will have fixed the problem. Now the other problem may be is the jumping is just not powerful enough to turn it without a battery, because this thing doesn't have a battery. So we're going to give it another try and turn it over. Yep, that worked. I've put the spark plug back in, so they just needed a valve adjustment to make it turn over easier. That is fantastic. So now I have to check to see if there's a spark, which I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm going to test for spark. I think I can get in a position now that I can do that. There's no spark. That means the ignition coil is bad. So what I did to come to this conclusion was I put some starter fluid inside the carburetor and nothing happened. So then I checked the spark plug, and again, no spark. So starting coil, ignition coil needs to be replaced. That's probably a $20 piece. And then, so we'll just take it one step at a time and see where we can go from there. So I went ahead and took the shroud off, see what was going on with the ignition coil. And of course there's a mouse nest in here, which I knew, but you can see right here, a mouse has chewed through the spark plug wire. He started to chew into the ignition coil itself. So yeah, that's definitely going to need replaced. So if you'll click this up next box, it'll take you to a video where I was working on a tiller. So I hope I can inspire you to take it one step at a time when you're living your dreams. Thanks for watching.